Alright, so in this video, I'm just going to showcase Chloris, the new double S tier slime, in action. Now, before we get to the gameplay, I did just kind of want to highlight Chloris's ability and what we're going to see in the game. So, for Chloris's active ability, she has the Flower Cannon. What she does is she releases the Flower Cannon, dealing damage to all enemies instantly, and then it also is going to put enemies to sleep for 6 seconds. Ignoring status resistance, so it's a guaranteed once you trigger this ability, those enemies will go to sleep, and then while they're sleeping, they are going to get increased damage dealt to them. For her first passive, Mystical Bud, and this is going to have some effects that kind of flow through to other areas, but when an enemy within attack range dies, there's a 30% chance to summon a Flower Bud. The bud will bloom after 5 seconds, dealing damage to nearby enemies. And then, so Nature's Emissary is her next passive. This one goes along with those Mystical Buds. So for every Mystical Bud summoned, Chloris will gain a stack of Nature's Emissary buff for 12 seconds, up to 5 stacks. So this just can keep stacking up to 5 times. And it'll increase her attack speed by 8% and lifesteal by 8%. So she can get up to actually 40% bonus attack speed and lifesteal. The one that this goes along with as well is this level 150 kind of milestone. So once you level up Chloris to 150, each stack of that Nature's Emissary will also grant her an additional 5% bonus to final damage. You're not really going to be able to see this in the gameplay as much directly unless you're paying really close attention to the actual damage output that is just being dealt on each attack. And then other slimes will also receive 50% of this Nature's Emissary buff. So this is helpful because not only will Nature's Emissary buff Chloris, but you'll also be able to give your other slimes you're using in hard mode. So if I'm using Chloris and like Yamlet, I'll actually be able to give Yamlet bonus lifesteal and attack speed as well, which is pretty cool. On to her final passive, which is the Fairy Garden. While Mystical Buds are present, they deal AoE damage to surrounding enemies every second and reduce their dodge rate by 50%. This dodge rate debuff, it's pretty cool just because it enables you to need a lot less hit rate, and you can kind of land attacks more than you really should be able to given your gear. So I'm going to hop into a battle real quick, and then we're just kind of showcase each of these. So for one, we're just going to start with this active ability. I'll wait till a few more enemies get on the screen here, and then as soon as I click this active ability, that damage comes down, and then it just instantly puts all those enemies to sleep. So it's kind of nice because as well as it does apply a debuff, so those enemies will take decreased damage after they're sleeping. It's just a guaranteed stun, and then they'll just stop moving. I mean, you can see those guys at the end of the screen that I stunned outside of attack range, which is nice. It can just really delay enemies, so it can be a really useful ability to use. So on to the next ability, which we've already kind of seen. So as I'm defeating enemies, anytime an enemy dies within attack range, there's going to be a 30% chance to summon a Flower Bud. After 5 seconds, you'll be able to watch each of these flower buds. Flower buds, they bloom into flowers, dealing AoE damage. But yeah, these flower buffs, as we talked about, will actually have some other cool abilities as well. So with that Nature's Emissary buff, so what it does for every Mystical Bud summoned, Chloris will gain a stack of that Nature's Emissary buff, and then each stack will increase Chloris's attack speed by 8% and lifesteal by 8%. So if we actually go and look at Chloris's attack speed, right now it's 15.96, and it'll actually just fluctuate. It might go down to 13, 12. I think her actual base attack at the beginning of the wave might be closer to like 12 or whatever. But you'll also see, because that level 150 ability, you'll be able to see that Yamlet's attack speed is also fluctuating too, just because she's getting 50% of that bonus. So you can kind of get some cool stuff there. This is nice because it not only does it help Chloris deal more damage as well as lifesteal, but it'll also help your secondary slime. So Yamlet is traditionally a more tanky slime. Her passive gives her a ton of HP, but she's not as damage heavy. So this actually really helps Yamlet just in her ability to deal more damage. If we go over to this defensive tab, you'll be able to see that lifesteal is fluctuating as well. So now on to the final ability, which is that Fairy Garden. So while Mystical Buds are present, they deal AoE damage every second to surrounding enemies and reduce their dodge by 50%. So this is kind of cool and a little harder to see, but you can see usually I'm actually going to swap out a couple of slimes real quick just to maybe demonstrate it a little better. So I'm going to re-enter this battle, and I'll show you real quick. So if I'm using Chloris as my equipped slime, so Chloris has a 275% hit rate. Yamlet, I believe, is like 250 right now. And then my Yolanda should be, I believe, 270. So Yolanda and Chloris are actually very on par with each other. But if I go and start this battle with Yolanda and Yamlet, and then I'm going to go to 5 times speed, and you're actually just going to see there is a fair amount of missed attacks, and that's just because I technically don't have enough hit rate to be able to be hitting all these enemies. Now, if I go back to using, I'm going to switch back Yolanda to Chloris. And so because Chloris is that Fairy Garden ability, what it does is it makes those flower buds, any enemies around those flower buds will have decreased dodge chance. So I still will have some missed attacks, but they're actually going to be more around where those flower buds aren't. So as long as there's flower buds around, typically my hit rate, I do land most of those attacks. So it is just a nice buff. It allows you to get away with using slimes that don't have as much hit rate. So where my Yamlet only has 250 hit rate, this also does buff Chloris's hit rate indirectly, as well as Yamlet's hit rate, just allowing you to hit enemies more frequently and deal more damage. Overall, Chloris is a really strong slime, helps you deal a lot of damage, and just has some cool stuff going on there. But thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions.